What's up, guys? It's MB Boxing, and today I'm going to be predicting the outcome of Terence Crawford versus Shawn Porter, and this is going to be a 12-rounder for the WBO Welterweight World Championship, and this fight is going to be Saturday, November 20th, from the Michelob Ultra Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, and this fight is going to be broadcasted on ESPN pay-per-view, and to get into both fighters' resumes, Terence Crawford, fighting out of the United States, holds a record of 37 wins, no defeats, with 28 wins coming by way of knockout. He's currently not ranked by BoxRec in the welterweight division. However, he's the former undisputed super lightweight world champion, as well as the current WBO welterweight world champion. And now to list some of his best victories, he has a unanimous decision victory over Ricky Burns, a knockout victory over Yuriorkis Gamboa, a knockout victory over Thomas Delorme, a unanimous decision victory over Victor Postal. He has a knockout win over Julius Ndongo, which was the win that got him undisputed. He also has a knockout win over Jeff Horn, a knockout win over Jose Benavidez Jr., a knockout win over Amir Khan, a knockout win over Egidijus Kavaliauskas, and he's coming off a brutal knockout victory over Kell Brook. And he's also a former lightweight world champion as well. And to get into his opponent's resume, Shawn Porter, fighting out of the United States as well, holds a record of 31 wins, 3 defeats and 1 draw, with 17 wins coming by way of knockout. He's currently not ranked by BoxRec in the welterweight division as well. And to list his defeats first, he has a majority decision loss years ago against Kell Brook. He also has a unanimous decision defeat to Keith Thurman, and he also has a split decision defeat to Errol Spence Jr. And to list his one and only draw came early on in his career, and it was a split decision draw against Julio Diaz. And now to list some of his best victories, he has a unanimous decision victory over Devon Alexander, a unanimous decision victory over Adrian Broner, a knockout win over Paulie Malignaggi, a knockout win over Andre Berto, a unanimous decision victory over Danny Garcia, and a split decision victory over Yordenis Ugas. And in my opinion, this fight is a 50-50, and I think either man could win, because at first, I'm going to be honest, I thought that Shawn Porter was going to take this fight. Then I thought it was going to be Crawford on points, and now I am thinking that Crawford is going to get the knockout victory. And I'll explain why I've come to that conclusion. At first, I thought that Porter was going to just come forward and really just bombard Crawford, but after watching a lot of how Crawford moves around, how he switches, and how that confuses his opponents, I think Porter's going to have a tough time, and I think if he's going to be as rowdy and as coming forward and as just pressuring his opponent as he was against Spence, like a bull, he could get caught against a guy like Crawford. I know Spence is also world class, and both Crawford and Spence are the best at welterweight, but Shawn Porter, he gave Spence a really tough fight, so I would expect Crawford to get a tough fight. But, I think Porter has to be careful, and can't really be too reckless here, because if he is, there's a chance he could get caught and dropped or even stopped. I know it's very hard to see Porter getting stopped, but based on specifically how he got dropped against Spence in their fight, where he was caught throwing a punch, and it was specifically a wide hook, because who knows what would happen if Porter gets caught with a sharp shot from Crawford, and Crawford arguably has more power than Spence, give or take, whatever. Both of them are world class at welterweight, and I would love to see the winner of this fight Errol Spence, and in a huge showdown between the best welterweights in the world. And even if Porter wins this fight, I would not mind seeing a rematch between the two, because their first fight was excellent and very, very competitive. I had it 114, 113 to Spence. I thought it was a really, really close fight. But more onto this one, I just think Crawford is going to be the one a bit more composed than Porter. Like, as I mentioned earlier, Porter is the one who comes forward, moves around a bunch, and speaking of upper body movement, when he comes forward, moves his head, ducks punches, lands sharp counters, specifically hooks, and he could give a lot of guys problems. That's why he is a world-class fighter. And I'm actually very happy Crawford is actually fighting Porter, because Porter is a world-class welterweight. Terence Crawford has yet to fight a world-class welterweight, and I'm being honest. His best welterweight win was, I don't even know, maybe Kell Brook, and that was after Errol Spence beat him. But still, Kell Brook is a good win, but Porter would take it up to the next level, and hopefully we'll be able to see that Spence fight next. But, Crawford, he needs to be composed here early on, especially when Porter's going to have most of his stamina to come forward and throw a lot of punches. And Crawford, he needs to be switching stances numerously to sort of confuse Porter a bit. I know Porter's a veteran fighter, but I mean it's always confusing when you're seeing a guy just switching stances and just landing shots to the left, to the right, etc. But yeah, Crawford needs to be on the back foot a bit. I don't think Crawford's going to be the one coming forward a lot early on in this fight. I think he's going to be the one fighting a mid range or on the outside, whereas Porter will be the one coming forward trying to land his sharp hooks to the head and to the body. But then as the fight goes on, I could definitely see Porter getting a bit more tired and Crawford's shots starting to land more clean, just like how he did against Edgedis Kavaliauskas, how early on it was extremely competitive up until Kavaliauskas sort of punched himself out a bit. And Kavaliauskas and Porter have similar styles where they come forward with power shots, but Porter is obviously more sharp, more experienced, and his shots are more thudding. And I mean, Porter is going to have, I think, a good amount of success from the early to the start of the middle rounds up until he obviously gets himself a bit more tired, and then Crawford, as I mentioned before, his shots start to land more accurately, more hard, and Porter will definitely see Crawford's shots take a toll on Porter, and I think Crawford, as I mentioned earlier, is going to get that statement by stopping Porter. And I know that I'm not a fan of specifically any boxer besides maybe Triple G, but I know that the Spence fans are gonna, even if Crawford stops him, they're probably gonna say, "Oh, that's a Spence leftover" or whatever. But I mean, I'll give Crawford so much credit if he's able to stop or even just beat Porter. I mean, that's just an excellent win, and hopefully, as I mentioned many times in this video, we'll be able to see a Crawford versus Spence showdown if he gets a win here over Porter. And I mean, this will definitely prove that he's a pound for pound fighter if he's able to get past Porter as well. And I think he's definitely the favorite here. I mean, if Porter, I mean, he is an excellent fighter as well, but as I mentioned before, he could get reckless at times, like we saw when he got dropped against Spence. And I think later on, when the fatigue starts to set in, Porter's gonna get caught throwing a punch, and he's gonna get countered, and it's not going to be the same from there on, and Porter will not recover, and Crawford will jump on him and arguably get a standing stoppage after dropping him, or he'll possibly just drop him and the referee just stops the fight after Porter goes down, something like that. I can't really see Porter like quitting in his corner because he is a true warrior, and yeah, it's either Crawford dropping Porter, Porter gets back up and gets finished standing, or Crawford drops Porter like 2 or 3 times, possibly in a round after really hurting him, and the referee waves it off. But yeah, I mean, as you heard, I got Terence Crawford by late stoppage, and I think the stoppage will happen late, like really late, like from rounds 8 to rounds 12, in those championship rounds from around there. And I think that Crawford obviously has good stamina. I mean, he's shown that many times before. Rarely gets tired in the later rounds of any fight he's had. And yeah, I mean, Shawn Porter, I mean, many people actually aren't saying that Shawn Porter's been focused for this fight. I mean, people are saying that he's really been not taking it as serious as it should. They're saying that he's just focused on his podcast, his commentating for fights, etc. But I think he's very focused. I mean, from what I've seen, even in his camp, there's some training videos online. He looks sharp on the pads, even sharper than in his last fight against, I believe his last fight was against Sebastian Formella. He won that fight easily, but still, I mean, many people were expecting a knockout, but still, it's a good win. Decent win over a former IBO champion. But, yeah, as you heard before, I got Terence Crawford winning this fight by knockout. I think he will get the statement victory, and it will most likely be from rounds 8 to rounds 12. So, overall, I believe that Terence Crawford will defeat Shawn Porter by knockout to defend his WBO Welterweight World title. And as I mentioned before, the stoppage will happen from rounds 8 to rounds 12. And yeah, that's really it. I'm MB Boxing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.